Hey, welcome to The Quad, the new board game geek show where four shady characters from around the world of hobby gaming meet to discuss game-related topics. Each one of us will argue, defend, fight to have our chosen example shown to be the best example in the given topic of this week's show. I am Stephen Bonacore, the podfather of gaming. I'm a hobby game entrepreneur, game media personality, game industry veteran. You can find me all over social media, especially on Facebook, the Podfather of Gaming group, and my YouTube channel, The Podfather of Gaming, and my very long-running podcast called Board Games Insider, available in both audio and video formats.
I am Candice Harris. I am a media creator for BoardGameGeek. You can find my voice on the BoardGameGeek podcast or interviewing wonderful game designers on Cardboard Creations. I also contribute to BGG News and all sorts of other fun BGG-related things like The Quad. You can find me at Candy Drum most places, although I try not to use social media that much. I like to keep it real with the people I'm with, you know. Anyway, Candy Drum, thanks.
Awesome. Hey, so my name is Matthew McCack. I'm a co-founder of Room 51, which is a YouTube channel, as well as on Twitch as Room 51 Live. I am also a contributor to Tabletop Live Network as a live streamer, and Adequate 4, which is pretty new, co-founder and contributor to Adequate 4, also a live streaming platform. You can find me pretty much on all the socials, so Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at This Is Room 51.
And I'm Crystal Dax. I am primarily a podcaster. You can find me on the Board Game Blitz podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, all of the usual platforms. I also stream on Twitch under Board Game Blitz, and I'm also a part of the Tabletop Live Network along with Matthew. Where you can catch our monthly Tabletop Live Network marathons, usually the last weekend of every month. And I tend to pop up on other little pieces of media here and there occasionally as well. You can find me on social media either at Board Game Blitz or at Crystal Dax or at Crystal Dax 1, depending on the platform.
Crystal, thank you so much for joining us today. This is awesome. We are going to have so much fun. What are we talking about today? Today, we're going to discuss, drum roll, Derek, games with deck building. Each of us is going to tell you why our example is the best of these games, or our favorite in the genre, or what makes it special in this category. But first, let's define the category of best games with deck building. Candice, why don't you go?
So we are talking about board games that have deck building as one of the core mechanisms today. You know, we had a whole debate before we actually are recording this, where we were planning to talk about pure deck builders, like just card games. Let's, start. But there were some people, I'm not going to name any names, that had had to name one specific game, so we changed the whole subject around it. I'm not mentioning any I'm not mentioning any names though. So today we're talking about board games that incorporate deck building, and deck building is when all players start with usually the same core deck of cards that's driving the gameplay in some capacity, and then as you play the game, you're making your deck custom, you're adding new cards to it. And in the case of the games we're discussing today, it's going to be, there's some other things happening with the deck building. So comment?
Well, yes.
Is that a comment?
Yes. I would like to comment a little bit about that explanation, that all those original deck building games, which were all the pure ones, right? Obviously Dominion started it, and you had Thunderstone, and you had, I forgot the other big, Ascension, right? Those like the kind of right there. They were very single focused, so it's hard to pick what's the best of these kind of games. Everything that did deck building after that did it better. They incorporated it as a mechanic, ergo these are better games. So I think doing games with deck building is a much better category than just doing pure deck building games. Throw hate all you want.
We'll revisit it.
Yeah, we're going to revisit that. Whack. Yes.
All right, so let's begin with the presentations. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, I was going to say, I for once in my life, I agree with you, Bonacore.
There we go. See? I knew I invited you for a reason.
Crystal too.
I needed an ally,
no,
Crystal.
it's definitely me as well. Well, I'll kick things off then with my choice for the category, and that is a game that was published in 2021 called Living Forest. Living Forest is a game for 1 to 4 players published by Ludo Not that plays in about 45 minutes, and it was designed by Aski Christensen with art by Apolline Etienne. In Living Forest, you and your fellow players take on the roles of nature spirits trying to rescue the sacred tree of the forest by any means necessary. With multiple paths to salvation, it's up to each player to determine how to best protect the forest and secure their victory. Players each start with a small deck of guardian animal cards, each containing some variety of element symbols displayed on their left side. These elements will give the players the power to take actions during their turn, but greedy players may end up unable to do everything they want. During the first phase of each round, players simultaneously draw cards from their decks until they choose to stop, or they have drawn 3 solitary animals from their deck without gregarious animals to balance them out. Because this is also a push your luck game. So players have to decide when to stop drawing, or they may lose out. But what's interesting about this, unlike other push your luck games, is when you do bust, so to speak, you do not lose the ability to take all actions on your turn, which is something that I feel is a plus. After all players complete the draw phase, then in turn order, players get to complete either 2 or 1 action on their turn, 2 actions if they did not bust, and 1 action if they did. Actions that they can take during their turn include things like moving around the track where the evil spirit Onibi is flying around the forest trying to burn it down, buying protective trees to help protect the forest more, purchasing more guardian animals to add to their deck, and additional actions that I won't go through all of just for time purposes. So in the course of the game, players have 3 different victory conditions that they can try and meet. They can either try to collect a certain number of sacred flowers, they can try to collect a certain number of fire tokens that they have extinguished throughout the course of the game, or they can plant a number of protective trees in their garden to protect the forest from Onibi, the evil fire spirit. This game is one of those games where there's a lot of mitigation factors. There are ways to mitigate the bad cards in your deck that could theoretically make you bust. The solitary animals are very powerful and have lots of elemental symbols on them, but they will potentially make you bust when you're drawing cards, but the gregarious animals will help balance those out. There are also little tokens that you can acquire throughout the game that will allow you to discard the solitary animals when they come out, or will allow you to discard the fire cards that can get added to your deck if, in fact, Onibi gets a little mean, and add some of those to your deck when you can't handle the fire. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in this game, and the player interaction is somewhat minimal, but you can, as you move around the track where Onibi is lighting all of his fires, you can jump over the other player's tokens and steal some of their resource tokens from them, which can actually help them get further away from victory and propel you closer to yours. So that's Living Forest. It is a game that I fell in love with right as I first played it, and I have now played it a whole lot since then. And I would love to hear your all's thoughts on it if you all have been able to play this one.
Well, it's funny that you you mentioned you played it a bunch of times, because I was actually thinking I have played Living Forest. I think I played it once or twice on Board Game Arena the year it came out, and I was just thinking I completely just forgot all about this game. It wasn't that memorable to me, and I'm like, the crazy thing is it won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres that year, but like I don't ever hear anyone talking about this game. I thought it was cool, but it was also kind of forgettable for me, and I remember thinking like, okay, maybe I'll play this in Board Game Arena, but I don't know if I want to like mess with it with the whole board game. It seems like it's going to take longer than it needs to, overstay its welcome a little bit. Of course, I'm not an expert. I haven't played it that much because I played it and I liked it, but then I forgot about it. So that's my hot
I
take.
mean, you're not the only one that has expressed opinions like that. I think there are other people who also kind of bounced off of it at first. And I will admit, while I'll defend just the base game by itself, this is also one of those games that for some people, the expansion really makes the game shine. The Kodama expansion for this game, this is one of those games that for some people, that's a necessary expansion. It adds a lot of really cool features, and I will say it definitely improves the game experience. But obviously, we're not talking expansions here, so I'm not going to use that as part of my defense. But in case you do want to try it again in the future on Board Game Arena, I would definitely recommend adding in the Kodama expansion.
So you're saying it's a half
Noted.
a game, you need the expansion. Okay, I understand. So you really don't get the whole game in the box, and I got to go buy another game. All right. I have to
for
admit,
some people...
I have not played the game, and I barely remembered it from winning the Kennerspiel jar, which says a lot, because this game, of the 4 games that we're going to discuss here, is the lightest of the games. Based on weight that I saw on BGG and based on gameplay on the video that I watched. So not a lot of meat, it looks like, on these bones, I'm going to say. And can I ask a question? Why do the animals all look like they're demonic in this game? The animals in the artwork, they have no eyes. Every animal, these little cute, beautiful animals, and they all have these whited out eyes, and they're just staring at you.
I think you would have to ask Apolline Etienne, because she was the artist.
I guess I could ask the artist, but I was freaked out by the animals. But that's all I can say about the game, because I haven't.
My guess would be that because they are spirits, that if they looked too humanistic, then maybe that could be conveyed quite as clearly. But you make a good point, Stephen. This is a relatively light game. It definitely is not as deep or complex as some of the other games we're going to discuss later. And I think that actually plays in its favor, because when it comes to games that include deck building, a lot of them are intimidating for new players to learn and to play. And especially if you do want to teach someone who doesn't have a wide breadth of knowledge in the hobby, you potentially are teaching them multiple types of gaming mechanics at the same time. In a game with deck building, you're teaching them deck building and also the game itself. Mm-hmm. In this game, because it is lighter, I think it's just a little bit of an easier ask. And so if you did want to get someone into deck building games or push your luck games, this kind of is a little bit of an easier step into those worlds.
Or you could just play a game that's pure deck building and you don't have to worry about it.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
I mean, you could if you wanted to be really bored.
No. I am actually so glad that Candice brought up what she brought up, because I have not played this game out of all. This is the only one out of the 4 that I haven't played. And it was interesting because when I was looking at it, I was watching videos on it and everything. And I thought, the game, it seems cute, but like not memorable. And then I found out I won their Kennerspiel, and I was like, oh yeah, they usually mess it up anyway. So, I felt like why would I play this game instead of like Quacks of Quedlinburg, which, has the same, it's not deck building, but it's bag building, and I guess anything goes luck here, and it has push your luck.
Yeah.
and it just looks more fun, and it's an obvious evergreen. A lot of people know about it. It didn't seem like it had a whole lot of evergreen staying power, such as something like, I don't know, Dominion. But yeah, I would like to try it, but I don't think that it's a game that I'd be like, yep, this is the best game with deck building. So wrong.
You make some really great points. I love Quacks of Quedlinburg. It is an absolutely fabulous game. It is in my collection with all of the BGG upgraded bits. So I love that game, but in Quacks of Quedlinburg, you do occasionally run into the issues where you have a runaway leader, and it is basically impossible for the person in last to catch up, even with the rat mechanism. And there are few mitigation tools in Quacks of Quedlinburg if you happen to be drawing poorly out of your bag. So I have run into situations where just via bad luck, one player is getting hosed round after round. And so in a game like Quacks, you can end up with a player having a really bad experience, whereas in Living Forest, there are more mitigation tools. So I think Quacks may be a better game overall, potentially, but I think Living Forest is a more friendly and approachable game because of that.
All right, Matthew, what do you got for us?
A humbug.
Well, I had a pick before when I thought this was going to be, a deck building game
Conversation,
list.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But then I picked this one in spite of everything. And it is another game. I really love this game. And it is Millennium Blades, published in 2016 by Level 99 Games, designed by D. Brad Talton Jr., designed by Fabio Fontes. And it is a game for 2 to 5 players. And in this game, you are essentially simulating like a collectible card game, and you are one of these. You're somebody who's like really good at this particular collectible card game, I guess called. And so you are building up your deck in order to then go into tournaments to beat other people's decks that they've built. And the whole thing, it's so meta, which is something I love about the game. It's like it's a game within a game. It does have set collection involved in the game. It's got like trading and opening up booster packs and things, which I love. I love that. I love the surprise of like, oh, what am I going to get? It's got some like economic strategy involved as well, which is very, very cool. But ultimately, yeah, you're going into these tournaments. You could even play it as a campaign if you wanted to. I've not played it as a campaign where it's like 3 games where you go like nationals level, worlds, and all that stuff. But a lot of the artwork is like manga and anime style, which is kind of fun. I like that. It feels like I'm playing like one of those CCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something like that, which is a lot of fun. So, and there's just so many cards in this game that there's just like piles and piles of cards, and each game is so wildly different based on the cards that you're playing with in that particular game. And then you have to think about the meta, right? Like, okay, are like red cards like the best cards right now, or are the blue cards the best cards right now? And so you're trying to get all that done. Now, I picked this game because it's also a real-time game, I should mention. Although fairly light on the real time, it doesn't feel like you're trying to go really, really quick or anything like that. But it does keep the game to a good length, I think. So I figured that if we were going to pick a topic where it is deck building within games, why not pick the game that is all about deck building, and you're actually deck building within the game itself, as well as other things. I love collectible card games, and I love that we could play Millennium Blades, and you get the same excitement of playing those cards, of like opening up booster packs and all that stuff without spending a whole bunch of actual like real life money on it. And it is just so much fun. And then going into the tournaments and saying like, yeah, I got all this stuff, and also look at my beautiful collection of cards and things like that. So it is awesome. This game is the best of the best for this category, and definitely way better and more memorable than Crystal's Gate.
Well, so we're playing a board game about playing a collectible card game, and we're kind of like acting like we're playing this collectible card game over the time and over into like a tournaments, nationals and everything. I'd rather go play Magic the Gathering and a role-playing game, and I'll be fine. Thank you.
Now,
it sounds like we're LARPing the way Steven describes it.
Yes.
We're not
Really?
LARPing, Steven.
I'll just go play a collectible card. I'll go play Magic with my Lord of the Rings decks that I just got, and I'll go play a role-playing game, doing the whole thing together. I tell you this. I'll give you this one thing. This is a very unique theme and a very unique game. So, I mean, from that perspective, again, I haven't played it, but it sounds fascinating thematically, and sure, I mean, I do not play CCGs anymore, or TCGs. I just, not my jam any longer. But this game is built in a way that makes that whole idea sound like it's pretty cool. But I'll just go play Magic the Gathering instead. Sorry, Matthew.
Nah, because you don't even play it. You just said it.
I got my decks. I just got them.
Wrong. Next.
I would say. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. I would say, so I have played, I guess I'm the only one on here who's played all of the games that we're going to be discussing. But I played Millennium Blades and I was like really excited. I got a copy at some point. And I think for me, like it was a really cool experience and it's very, very unique, which I like. But I think ultimately, like the maintenance of dealing with so many decks of cards and the setup, it became too tedious that for me, it wasn't worth keeping in my collection. So I ended up passing it on, selling it off, and I don't really have any regrets. Like I'd be happy to play it again, but it's not like a forever game for me. Sorry, Matthew.
Oh man.
I know, and it's not your fault because we were supposed to talk about pure deck builders. It's not your fault. So I feel bad saying that.
It's not.
Yeah.
Let's just put a pin in that. It's Bonacor's fault. Okay, thank you.
I did exactly what I was told. No, I think the maintenance. I get you on that. That being said, I just keep it in the box for like the next time. I'm like, this is what I'm going to play next time. That way, I just take it out, and then it's ready to play. So I don't find the setup or anything, or even teardown, really to be bad at all for me.
But you'd rather play Mage Knight, right?
Oh my god.
Absolutely, yes. I almost said Mage Knight again for this. It has deck built, but
Yes, Mage Knight has everything in it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the best.
I actually, like Candice, I've played all the games on our lists today as well. I've only played Millennium Blades once near the time that it released, and it really impressed me because I've always been a person who is intrigued by CCGs, but I tend to get overwhelmed pretty quickly by the CCGs like Magic the Gathering that have such a wide breadth of cards that even if I have a deck that I know and I'm familiar with, when you play against others, often you can encounter cards that you don't know well. And I would get worried about, trying to figure things out on the fly, basically, and get paranoid, especially if I'm playing against a seasoned player who really wants things to be snappy. Whereas with Millennium Blades, in theory, if you make that more of a lifestyle game for yourself, you can learn the cards and learn the meta, and you know that there's nothing theoretically new coming in, but there are enough cards in the box that it can still be a unique experience each time. That being said, similar to Candice, I don't need that game in my collection. I don't want to be the one that's kind of doing the maintenance, and it can be a bit tedious to deal with. But if I was at like a convention and someone wanted to play it, I would definitely be willing to play that game again. It's just not one that I'm clamoring to play on a regular basis. But for me, it is a better CCG-like experience than most CCGs. So I think it's a good pick.
Thanks, Crystal. And I will play with you at a convention.
Awesome. I would love that.
So, shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Let's do it. I mean,
Okay.
I think I already won this, but all right.
Okay, I was just thinking about something. So the game that I picked, that's clearly, and you'll hear it from the comments on YouTube and BGG everywhere, that this is clearly the best game on this list. No offense to anybody, but it is Dune Imperium. It is a 2020 release from Paul Dennen, published by Direwolf, plays with 1 to 4 players. And a couple of little fun facts here, which I was just thinking about. Crystal, when you were bringing up Living Forest, Paul Dennen had a game that came out years before Dune Imperium that is a great, lighter game that mixes deck building and board gaming, and that is Clank. So I just want to give a shout out to the designer of my game, but Clank, I think, would be a lighter intro game, and it has Push Your Luck too with a cool theme. But moving on, Dune Imperium. So Dune Imperium is a Dune themed worker placement and deck building game. Everyone has a unique leader with a special ability, and each round you have an agent turn and then you have a reveal turn. And during an agent turn, that's where you're going to be playing cards from your hand one at a time on your turn to send your agents out to action spaces on the board to get stuff and do cool stuff. And some of the cards, so all the cards have shapes on them telling you which type of spaces they can actually be deployed on. So there's a lot of like real interesting hand management and tough decisions with just like the tension from the worker placement, hoping the space is open that you want to go to, but also trying to manage your hand of cards so that you play stuff when you need it and, you know, to the best of your advantage and everything. But some of the card and location effects help you get resources, draw extra cards, trash cards, which are traditional things you do in deck building games. And then in this game, you can also potentially recruit some troops because there's a conflict phase. That's one of the most exciting parts about this game, but we'll get into that in a minute. There's also a place where you could spend Solari, which is the currency in the game, to gain a Mentat, which is a temporary worker. So already here, we're talking about combining two awesome game mechanisms, deck building and worker placement. You also have these like devious intrigue cards that you can get in this game that are just like, they add so much spice and so much tension to the game. Because when I see Crystal has like 3 intrigue cards, I don't know what she might try to pull. So I'm worried about it. I'm thinking about it. I'm factoring that into my strategy that she might try to pull some stuff on me. But there are like some cards that are going to help with endgame scoring, some that are going to help you with the combat phase, which I haven't really talked about yet, and all sorts of other little goodies. But after you do the worker placement phase, whenever you're done, you run out of workers or you pass, you'll do a reveal phase with whatever cards are left in your hand. You will be able to potentially buy some new cards from your deck. So a la pure deck building, there's a card market where you can get better cards for your deck. And deck building strategically in this game is so important because you don't want to clog up your hand or anything like that. But also during the reveal phase, you might have some little swordy blade things on your cards, which is going to help increase your strength for the conflict. So when the conflict pops off, which is after everybody's done the reveal turn, you know, you have little cubes in, or if you have the deluxe version of this game like I do, because you're a huge fan, you have little minis and everything that you'll have out there, and you'll have a certain strength. So we'll see everybody's strength of conflict, and we're competing over this combat rewards card, which is so juicy. It's either resources, it could be a victory point, 1 or 2. And one of the other things that I love about this game is the tight victory point system. So this game is, you get to 10 points, you win the game. Think Twilight Imperium, but a much tighter, more concise package, more accessible package. But every single victory point matters. It's not like those point salad games where it's just like, oh, well, let me get 10 points here, I have 100 points, blah, blah, blah. No, every single victory point you are fighting for, you are trying to get. You have these different influence tracks for the different factions in the game, and you're working your way up these influence tracks. And as soon as you get to a certain spot, you get a victory point. But if you don't keep pushing and somebody gets above you, they can take one of those victory points from you. Every victory point counts. And it just adds so much tension and excitement to the game. And so for me, like Dune Imperium, I have one of my favorite gaming memories. I was playing a 3-player game of this, and my heart was literally racing. And I'm like, why do I feel this way over a board game? You know, I was like, so there's so much excitement, anxiety, tension. You don't feel that from a lot of games. But this game, you will feel that, and it feels great. And I love that it combines so many things that I love about board games, deck building, worker placement. I love like a little bit of combat and intrigue because you're factoring that in as you're doing your worker placement, and lots of different things you can like strategize around. And then again, the victory point system is so great. And I know, Crystal, you were talking about the expansion that fixes Living Forest. In this game, the base game is amazing, but the expansion, I've only played Rise of Ix. It's dope. It's awesome. I will never play without it, but it doesn't need to fix the game. So anyway, I love Dune Imperium. I can tell by all your faces that you all do too. So we can just move on and accept that this is the best game on the list.
All right, well, I'll speak up first and I'll let them gather their thoughts, because you are correct in that the mechanics of this game are super solid. The tight victory point system is incredibly satisfying. Every victory point you get feels like an accomplishment, an achievement. It feels really, really good. And the worker placement part is great. The deck building part is great. All of that, wonderful. Where is the theme? Like,
Yes!
if you're gonna
Yes!
make a game based on a property as interesting as Dune, the game is mechanically fabulous, but it does not feel like Dune at
Crystal,
all. Not even
Crystal,
a tiny bit. Not one
Crystal,
tiny bit.
I love you so much. I love you so much, Crystal. I knew that we picked the right person for this show.
Because you can go back to the game, like a different game, Rex / Dune, a different board game that exists. Even that game feels more like Dune than this does, and this is the more modern game.
Hey, I feel you. I hear you. I love the OG Dune board game. That is the most thematic Dune feeling board game out there. And this is, it's a bit pasted, it's a bit pasted, but I don't care because it's so good. It's so good that I'm not playing Dune Imperium to feel like I'm living in Dune. I'm playing it because all the mechanisms in that game make me feel good, and it's a well-designed game. And that is, if I want to feel like the Bene Gesserit, I'm going to play the OG Dune board game for sure. So I feel you there. What was that, Monica? Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I can't agree more with Crystal. It's like there's no theme in this game. Those characters that come up, who cares? I don't know who they are. Nobody knows who they are. You have to read like 9 books into Dune to understand who these characters are. They just like come, what? Who? What is this? I don't know why I'm picking this guy. I'll just take that one. It's the right symbols I need and stuff. Like, no, there's no theme in this game. I'm not playing Dune anything. I'm playing really excellent worker placement with some deck building added. That's sort of what I'm playing. And I disagree with the 10 points thing. TI, which also has like a 10-point system, that makes sense. You see them right there. You're going for it. Everybody can go for them. This 10-point system in Dune Imperium it's just too low, and it's too tight. I mean, this is like point diet versus like point salad. It's like, I gotta pick this one little thing I'm gonna get. No. I want a big juicy salad of a point system. No Dune Imperium. No.
I'm sorry, you're wrong. And yeah, I don't care if it's called Spaghetti Imperium. It is still, you could have little pasta figures on those cards. I do not care, because what I get from the game is so much more magical than the theme that's on the game.
Spaghetti Monster Imperium. We just rethemed it. It's a better theme.
The sass must flow when it comes to this game, y'all.
I love that.
The sass must flow.
Yes.
Somebody needs to coin point diet. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
Point diet.
But what's funny is, isn't the point
diet.
salad? Salad is usually what you have when you're on a diet. So
I know,
One
right?
of those,
Unless you
one
add
of those
the dressing,
monster
I guess.
taco salads, about 1,200 calories. That's the kind that I like to chow into. Yeah.
As everybody else has said, the theme is just not there. And I think that really the game probably got its popularity because yes, the mechanisms are brilliant, and it profited off of like what was really trending at the time, which was Dune Imperium. Even though this game has no Dune Imperium in it, really, the combat system I don't like that much necessarily. It's just these like red cubes from what I remember. That are placed on the board, and it doesn't feel like I'm really going into combat or anything like that. It feels more like, okay, I've got cubes, and that's it.
Conflict.
Whatever conflict. The conflict here is that
Are you setting the cubes on fire?
I don't think
is
it's
that
the
the
best
conflict?
the fire.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, why am I getting interrupted here? Okay, no, I don't actually have all that much more to say, other than my game is still the best one, and yeah.
No. But yeah, I mean, not everybody's going to like games with any kind of conflict. But to me, there's never been a deck building game that also brings in worker placement, that also brings in some kind of conflict. And it's conflict where you're not rolling dice. You are strategically putting your forces out there against other people. You're making interesting decisions of how much do I want to go for that this turn versus that turn? Who cares about what the rewards are? Those are interesting decisions. And then it's exciting again because of the intrigue cards. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell everybody to check out where Dune Imperium is versus every other game on this list in terms of ranking on BGG. And the people have spoken.
Whoa.
I have spoken. Dune Imperium, mic drop.
I do love this game, by the way. But
I mean, I do too. So
Yeah, I know.
I think it's adorable that the biggest complaint is the theme. So
it's not.
that
Okay,
says
the
it all.
biggest complaint
I said
about this
something
game
about combat.
by far.
I said something about conflict. Okay.
Yeah, let me push some cubes into the center and win a conflict. That's
Something-
great. Okay,
something-
Let's hear what you
trading,
got to say,
I don't know.
Steven. Let's hear what Steven has to say here.
so obviously the best in the games that employ the deck building mechanic of all is Lost Runes of Arnak. Originally published in 2020 by CGE, Czech Games Edition, and there she goes. Designer is Min Elwin, with the mechanics of contracts, market, multi-use cards, one per game abilities, resources to move, worker placement, and of course, deck building. Plays 1 to 4 players, plays in 30 to 120 minutes. I don't think I've ever played this game in 30. And it's for ages 12 and up. On an uninhabited island in uncharted seas, explorers have found traces of a great civilization. Now you will lead an expedition to explore the island, find lost artifacts, face gruesome guardians, all in a quest to learn the island's secrets. Lost Runes of Arnak combines deck building and worker placement in a game of exploration, resource management, and discovery. In addition to traditional deck building effects, cards can also be played to place workers, and new worker actions become available as players explore the island. Some of these actions require resources instead of workers, so building a solid resource base will be essential. You are limited only to one action per turn, so make the choice carefully. What action will benefit you for now? Someone else might take it later, so be careful. Decks are small. The randomness in the game is heavily mitigated by the wealth of tactical decisions offered on the game board. With a variety of worker actions, artifacts, and equipment cards, the setup for each game will be unique and encouraging players to explore new strategies and meet the challenge. That comes from the publisher, now from Bonacor. The game is really interesting, and it's actually simple, though it's so much deep interaction with the board and the other players that goes on. Plays in 5 rounds. Each round has 4 simple steps. Draw a hand of 5 cards. You take one action and any free actions that you have, or you pass. And obviously you're going to pass once you've done all the things you can do on a given round with all your resources. Set up for the next round, rinse or repeat 5 times. And the main actions is the big portion of the game. You can go dig at a site, which means you place your archaeologist, your worker, pay your travel costs. We're going to get back to that. The travel costs are very cool in this game. Resolve the effects of the space. Or you can discover a new site, paying compasses, to figure out where it is, place your artifact, pay your travel costs, and resolve the effects. When you do that, very often you can encounter bad things like guardians. It's very dangerous over there, far out on the islands. You might have to overcome a guardian as another action. You're going to go fight that guardian by basically spending resources to defeat him, and then you gain him for later scoring. You buy cards. There are artifact cards in the game, and there are item cards in the game. All of these cards, that's your deck building portion of the game. The mix of those cards are going to change over the course of the 5 rounds. You start out with only 1 artifact and 5 items, and then later on that little bar moves where you have more and more artifacts and less items. Artifacts are very powerful. They also cost a little bit more, so they'll tend to come out later on. Play a card for an effect. A lot of those artifacts and items not only have a travel icon on them, but they have an effect to give you really great benefits during the game. And then the research mechanic in the game, one of my favorite parts of the game. You're going to be moving your magnifying glass as you're doing research, and your notebook up on a track in different directions on this track. And as you do so, you're spending resources to gain items, and you're gaining victory points. And there's a racing mechanic here. If you get to the top of the track first or second or third, you get a certain amount of victory points that you'll score at the end of the game. And of course, the other main action I mentioned, you pass once you're out of resources. There's nothing to do. And before I even move on to that final scoring of point taco salad that we were talking about before, it's very interesting that as you're taking your actions and you're spending your resources, you're actually gaining resources, then you use back into your engine again. So this is a cycle that you're going to be spending and gaining and spending and gaining all during your turn to keep yourself moving and traveling to the various places. Final scoring is based on how far up on that research track that I got, how many temple tiles that I've gotten and the points on them, the idols that I've collected and the empty idol slots on my board. The guardians score 5 points. The item cards and the artifacts have points on them. And the fear cards, you will be gaining fear cards. You start out with a couple of them. They jam up your hand. They're negative victory points. There's no effect on them. Just they have a foot for extra travel. In conclusion, the fact is that Lost Ruins of Arnak is an amazing, fantastic game. You feel, unlike these other games, that you are actually like an Indiana Jones type character as you move on the land via foot or via car and boat a little bit further, or take a plane to go even further down. You explore these places, you reap the benefits, you defeat guardians, you pay costs for your expeditions, and you're collecting all of these items and these artifacts. In the end, showing that you are the best Indiana Jones style expedition leader out there. The resources in the games, I want to mention them, the plastic tablets and the arrowheads and the jewels, and if you upgrade the coins and the compasses, which everybody seems to do, they're all really cool. So there's a really nice tactile feel to all the resources as you're grabbing them, putting them on your board and spending them, taking them back and forth. The multi-use cards, I love that mechanic in games. Cards can be used either for their travel, which is one of those things, feet, boats, cars, and planes, and they'll take you to different places based on how far you can go, or for the effect on the card. And those effects, of course, as you're buying them, are really cool, and you want to get more and more of those effects into your deck. The fear cards, which are negative victory points, that mechanic works really well, but you don't overly get hurt by taking fear. A little fear is good for the soul. It helps you. It strengthens you. So take a little fear and go out there and go try to get that guardian. The game is meaty, but the turns are fast, and it plays really quickly once you know it. And it's super thematic for a mid-plus weight Euro. And Your Honor, as usual, the defense rests. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead. And I don't even know what you were talking about in terms of, unlike everybody else's games here, it's Indiana Jones like that wasn't part of the criteria for the episode.
It's part of every criteria.
My game has plenty of theme. It's all theme. But anyway, your game does not belong on this list because I love this game, but if we're talking about best games with deck building, this game really honestly mostly focuses on worker placement and like the research track and all that stuff. Deck building is pretty minuscule in this game. And so I don't even think I have to say anything more. Criteria not met, X.
So
Stand
Board Game
for.
Geek is wrong. It's not a deck building game. Board Game Geek says it is, but it's not. You're saying they're
That's
wrong.
right. Board Game
so.
Geek, wrong.
Okay.
And Bonacor, very wrong. Go ahead, Candice.
So I'll just chime in. So Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak came out at the same, or right around the same time. And I want to apologize to Lost Ruins of Arnak because I didn't give it a fair chance. So basically, I had played Dune Imperium about a half a dozen times, fell in love, and then somebody was like, let's play Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I was like, it's okay. Like, I like the components. The components are nice. I wanted to, like, really love the theme. But the challenge for me in my first, actually, and only game at this point was that the Guardians are so random that when everybody else moved to a space and had their Guardian, all of us at the table, the time that Guardian was revealed, all of us had the resources and could have taken it down. Then I go to explore one space, flip a Guardian, and it's something impossible. And it ticked me off because none of us at that time could have. And it was just like this random thing. And that like made the game not enjoyable for me. But I will also say, coming back from Gen Con, I did check out the new expansion for it. And I was like, it's solo co-op. And I was like, this sounds neat. And I'm actually kind of curious to like now revisit Lost Ruins of Arnak and try not to compare it, even though like I just got caught up with like these are both deck building worker placement games, so I'm comparing them, and really I can't really compare a great game like Dune Imperium to other games that just have the similar mechanisms. So this is like all sorts of like slight compliments, slight stab in the back, but I'm going to be exploring Lost Ruins of Arnak because, you know, that first game, it definitely like fell flat with me and I never really had a desire to revisit it, but I know so many people who love it. So I will give it a chance, but I just don't think it's the best on this list.
So you're saying you planned badly when you went to a Guardian space because you weren't prepared to fight it. And so the next person then
flip over
went,
a tile like the rules tell me to, and it was randomly worse than nobody was prepared.
So I've actually played Lost Ruins of Arnak a lot. It's a game that I really, really enjoy. I will say the deck building is definitely not the shining star of the game. So as far as Matthew's argument, I'm not necessarily disagreeing there, but I like how it incorporates the deck building in that because the deck building isn't such a huge part of the game, you do end up with a relatively small deck, which means you actually get to see the cards in your deck, which in some deck building games, like I'll put these amazingly cool cards in my deck and never see them again. Where in Lost Ruins of Arnak, I see every single card I put into my deck at least once, if not more than once. Yeah, and so you get the benefits of those cards you're adding to your deck multiple times, and in some instances, when you buy the card, you get to trigger its ability instantly, which a lot of deck building games don't do that either. So I think that those are real benefits. Something I wish this game had that it doesn't, which obviously the new expansion might be fixing, is there really isn't anything regarding the other players aside from, oh, they went to the spot I want to go to. And I think in a game where you're going on an expedition, I do kind of wish there was some kind of a little more interaction with the other players, even if you're competing against one another. The other thing that I really like about this game is it almost has that combo-y feel that you get from some roll and write games where you do a thing and that allows you to do another thing and that allows you to do another thing, and it gets really satisfying. Like at the beginning of your turn, you may only be able to do one or two things, but if you go there, now you have these resources, which lets you move up the track, which gives you more resources. And for me, I love that feeling of kind of comboing things together over multiple turns, so it can be really satisfying to play.
Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Crystal, you traitor.
If there's no other
I mean,
comments, obviously I win this. So
No,
we'll go.
you didn't win it.
I mean, I'm
Far
happy to take
from.
the L here, but I think you all made excellent choices. Truly, this is a genre of game where I think there's a lot of space for designers to play around, and I think we definitely haven't seen everything there is to see in this category, and it's clearly just getting better with time, right? Lots of options there.
Great Western
And
Trail, New Zealand.
And almost to go full circle back to the beginning again, and that's why I didn't want to go with a pure deck building game, because everything that's happened since has been done better because designers get smart. They see how they can implement this, and all of a sudden, I'll use that thing in this way in my worker placement and resource management game. So they keep doing this. So that's why this genre has gotten much more mature, certainly, than when Dominion first started it. And I think, as Crystal just said, it's going to get better and better as time goes on.
I still think there are a lot of excellent pure deck building games, and
Agreed.
that don't feel just like Dominion or very vanilla.
Yeah.
Like there are some that are pure card games that are doing really cool things that should not be ignored. So we will revisit this topic.
We will revisit this in about
Definitely.
2037.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, tomorrow.
I have to
Maybe we
take
will.
some of the heat too.
Episode
this is
7.
not just Bonacor's fault. It was my fault as well for this.
That's true.
'cause
That's true. It is partially
deck
Crystal's
building
fault.
by itself is not a thing that I tend to
There
gravitate
you
towards. So
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so
everybody
today
send
we-
hate towards Crystal. Don't do it.
yeah, you all put all the hate toward me in the comments below. Whatever.
So today we tackled the very difficult topic of games with deck building. And there are really a lot of good games in this category, as you can see. And I hope you all agree that the choices made by the co-hosts here were excellent and really representative of the category. What do you think? Tell us in the comments for the show. Agree, disagree, say that Candice is so mean to Bonacor. Let us know what you think. And just in case you've forgotten, I'm Stephen Bonacor, the podfather of gaming.
And I'm Candice Harris from BoardGameGeek.
I'm Matthew McCack from Room 51.
And I'm Crystal Dax from Board Game Blitz.
And we hope to see you here next time on The Quad. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
That was awesome, guys.
Yeah.
Very good show.
Yeah, that was fun.